Welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week we will discuss tools, tips, and ways to radiate your best life ever, interviewing practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate? Hello and welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Today we radiate food freedom with Heather Fiore of Lawrence, Kansas, a certified dietitian in the Great Free State. How are you today, Heather?
I'm great. How are you, Christy?
Fine, thank you. Did I get that right? A certified dietitian?
Well, I'm a registered dietitian and a licensed dietitian.
Oh God, I got it all wrong all the way around.
Quite okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But you've been doing this for a while. How long have you been working with dietetics?
It's 22 years. Well, it'll be 23 this year.
Oh
yeah.
My gosh. In Lawrence, Kansas, right? Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And what brought you to nutrition?
A couple of things. My grandmother had an interest in nutrition. She was not well educated. I think she got to like 6th or 8th grade. But she sort of had just like intuition about it or something, and always, would say things like she was Italian and she very much was against like eating bread with her pasta. Like for some reason that was like offensive to her. It is kind of too much carbs, except, don't we need our bread to soak up our sauce? But that was how she felt about it. And, she would say some things like about like watching butter and like, condiments in general. And she ate a lot of legumes, a lot of beans. She just had a knack for it, and it caught my interest growing up. But I did kind of develop my own, struggles with eating and body issues, and didn't think that studying that would be good. I thought it would actually make my issues worse. So I originally did not go into college studying nutrition. And then I started off in engineering and realized quickly that was not the right direction.
Not going to work for you.
No. So I went back to nutrition and realized like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Oh, that is great. And you work a lot with pediatrics and also diabetes.
Yes.
What drew you to those two fields?
I think I just sort of fell into diabetes, to be honest, and then realized the appeal of like hormones, and it's super interesting endocrinology. But for pediatrics, I think what happened was when I was early on, I was actually in my internship still, not quite a dietitian yet. I read an article about the role of dietitians in schools and really loved that idea of working with the health teacher and the PE teacher and the nurse and the classroom teachers and, school food service. And it just seemed like a really comprehensive way of impacting children's health and, getting children off on the right start in their lives. So that's kind of where it started. I thought, well, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to be in a school and I want to do all these things.
Right. And so did you ever spend some time working in a school?
I did. I tried lots of different avenues to get into schools. It ended up being incredibly challenging because that's not a job. They don't, there isn't money in a school budget to hire a dietitian to do all these wonderful things. So I tried working in food service. I tried becoming a health teacher. I worked grant funded in school-based health centers, like along with a nurse practitioner and a social worker. So I tried a lot of different avenues, and I and I did enjoy it, but none of it felt sustainable. And so I ultimately kind of stepped away from that dream and decided that wasn't going to happen.
Right. But you can make a bigger impact working one-on-one with
Yeah,
kids.
certainly I can help people more directly that way, and that was what I ended up doing out of, the next step from sort of walking away from that was walking into the Children's Diabetes Center, where I was able to provide, more intensive counseling for children and families with diabetes, type 1 and type 2, and some other things. So.
Right. Well, I mean, of course, diabetes type 1 is something that it's genetic. It's the luck of the draw in a way. Type 2 it seems like it's like a pandemic in a way for children and adults, unfortunately. Why do you think that is?
Mhm. Yes, it's it's complicated, I guess, is the short answer.
Right.
There's still that genetic component, like for sure. There's a piece to it that people are predisposed. There's also some lifestyle factors where they may not be the causation, but you can impact how sort of your path to some degree with your lifestyle. And we in this country, we don't necessarily promote healthy lifestyles and it's certainly not 15-20 years ago when I first got started doing that. That wasn't really where we were headed with kids.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It's one thing to see so many adults developing diabetes, but it's difficult to watch kids develop it as well.
For sure. And we put a lot of pressure on adults that, like this is some kind of lifestyle disease and like, all this personal responsibility, and which isn't necessarily fair, but it's even worse for kids because they don't have control. They don't have agency. They don't have even a sense of like long-term consequences like adults do. So it's just like a completely unfair disease for kids to get.
It is. It is. Um, but something else that you work with and that's part of your program that I just love is intuitive eating. Can
Mhm.
you walk us through that?
Oh gosh, yes. This is something that I um, walked myself through to sort out my own eating issues, way back when I was early on in my career. And then after I kind of sort of fumbled my way through this process, I realized that this is actually a thing. It has a name and there's a book, and somebody had really developed the idea of it. And basically there are 10 principles of it, but basically it's a matter of relearning how to trust your body, like the wisdom of your body when it comes to food, eating, the types of foods, the amount of food, really listening and being on the same page as your body, as opposed to this, sort of fighting your body and trying to follow external rules, which is pretty much any like diet or plan or, whatever they call it these days. We don't call them diets anymore. That's become a 4-letter word. But now there's, wellness plans and all this sort of stuff that we talk about. At the end of the day, they all involve rules that you follow, like you eat at this time or you don't eat at this time, or you eat these foods, you don't eat these foods, that whatever it looks like in the details, it's about following rules. And turns out our bodies don't like rules. Our brains don't like to be told what to do and what not to do. And it often causes us to rebel at some point
Right.
from the rules And
Right.
then we fall apart.
Either consciously or unconsciously, we
Correct.
rebel against it. Hmm.
Yes.
What does it look like when we fall apart and we rebel against those rules?
Well, it's different for most people, but there are themes for sure. A lot of times when there's restriction, you can kind of imagine what happens to somebody. They're restricting, like, let's say, carbohydrates. That's sort of the thing happening now. I'm not supposed to eat carbohydrates or white flour or whatever it is. And at some point, you're craving your favorite thing that has carbohydrates in it. Maybe it's cookies or whatever it is. And you decide, just this once, I'm going to have a cookie. And you don't just have a cookie.
Right.
You have all the cookies available to you because you've been told you're not supposed to have that. You don't know when you're going to allow yourself to eat it again. So you're like, I've already, broken the rules. I might as well just go all in with it. And now you go nuts and you eat all the cookies.
Right.
And then what follows, of course, is the guilt and then the shame that you did this. And this idea that, see, I can't be trusted to eat cookies. And this is what we learn. We learn I can't control myself. I don't have the willpower.
Right.
And so the only answer you come up with is like, well, I got to double down, no more cookies, and you try again. And then it just becomes this cycle.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But there's a little bit more at play, though, I understand, in the role of carbohydrates and sugar and sometimes even like yeasts, that some of these things are actually addicting.
Well,
Accurate?
there are theories that these foods are addictive, and I think the reason people say that is because the same parts of the brain that are lit up by like an addictive substance are lit up by carbohydrates.
Okay,
It's
interesting.
like these pleasure centers in the brain are lit up with this. But you know what else lights up your pleasure centers? Like watching a funny movie.
Hey, yeah, good point.
Right? Like having a really good time with like somebody you really care about, that can light up your pleasure centers just the same. And we're not addicted to funny movies. Like, that's silly. So it's really a fallacy that we can be addicted to food. It's just not the same as drugs and alcohol and things that are not essential to life. We have to eat. We can't not eat.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So intuitive eating. So if we're not following stringent rules, then what are we doing?
Yes. This is the hardest part for people because we love rules. We love to, even though we're not good at following them, we love to be told, right? We love black and white. This is good. This is bad.
Right.
Eat this, don't eat that. We just want to be told. Just tell me what to do.
There are literally books called Eat This, Don't Eat That.
Yes, yes. And it's because it's so appealing, but we also talk about things like balance and moderation, variety, and all these things that sound like simple concepts that we all get, but they're so hard for us to really implement. When you think of the word of moderation, like, what does that mean? And really, yeah. And we want to know, like, well, tell me how many cookies is that? How often do I get to eat dessert? What does moderation mean? In detail and rules. And that's not how it works. So everyone has to kind of figure out what's right for them. If let's say you're an elite athlete and eating, like ice cream before you run or do your sport doesn't feel good, then that tells you like, okay, that's not something I can eat at that time. And if you're working out every day, it might be really hard for you to fit those foods in very often. But if you're somebody else who's not having that kind of like response, and small amounts of whatever, cookies, ice cream, something, feel okay to you and actually like really satisfy and hit the spot for you, that might be something you eat every day. And that's okay. That works for you.
Right. And there might be a time when it no longer works for you too.
Correct.
I have to recognize that. But you know what I don't notice you saying is that you can just go out and eat whatever you want, whenever you want.
Yes. That's a misnomer about intuitive eating. Sometimes people think it means that there's this expression, or part of one of the principles is giving yourself unconditional permission to eat. And what people hear is free for all. Like, oh, Heather says I can eat whatever I want. And it doesn't mean everything and anything. It means that you're honoring your body, you're listening and respecting your body, and you're eating what your body wants and needs, not what your brain is thinking. Because if you're still caught up in diet mentality and all these rules, you know what your brain is going to think when you say, I can eat what I want? Your brain's going to be like, okay, cool. I want the thing you've been telling me I'm not allowed to eat all this time. And I want lots of it.
I want all of it.
Yes. Yes. So you have to like undo all of that first before you even attempt to give yourself unconditional permission to eat. You've got to relearn about not just listening to what your brain is telling you, but actually like from the neck down, what's your body telling you? Because all these diets disconnect us at the neck because they're telling us follow rules. And that's your brain has to like take over and take the action of like, this is what you're going to eat because these are the rules. Instead of listening to your body that's saying like, I'm hungry now, or I'm not hungry now, or I'm still hungry after this little bit of food you gave me, or whatever your body might be saying. You know, we need to like reconnect, listen from below the neck, mostly the stomach, but honestly, it's our whole body involved.
Right.
What does our body want and need? And it's not usually 10 cookies, like almost hardly ever, you know? But the brain is like, it doesn't care. Your brain does not care how full or even sick you are. It's just thinking about, this is enjoyable. I like this. I want more.
Right. And of course, there are so many factors that go into this too. Deprivation as a child, food insecurity as a child, you know, all types of hidden messages that we have concerning food. There's a lot into it.
Yes.
But I know that we can all be more intuitive and listen to our bodies, right? Rather than listening to our programming or the voice of our mother or the voice of our father or our food insecurity. Right.
Yeah.
So, and you've got a program that people can follow for intuitive eating.
Yes. There are two ways that I offer it. And there really are lots of ways that people can take themselves through this process. There's actually a workbook. You know, if you're really a, you know, do it yourself type, you can pick up a workbook, you know, and take yourself through it and work on each principle along the way. I also do more of like an intensive, you know, one-on-one, like really talking all the principles out, all the personal stuff that people are going through, you know, conversationally, which is, I think, you know, people find really helpful.
Oh, yeah. And so this workbook, is that part of your program?
I sometimes refer to it to get some ideas. If somebody's feeling particularly stuck on something, I might, you know, I have a couple of things that I grab from there, or little activities that we might do. One of the things people really, really struggle with is the body image part, where
Right.
we make peace not only with food, but we make peace with our bodies, and figuring out how to, how to just go along, just be okay. Like, you don't have to like love every inch of your body, but just kind of be okay with, this is what my body looks like. Even if you do want to change it, this is what my body looks like, and that's okay. That's a really hard thing for people to do. And so that's one of the things I might refer to the workbook to, help someone through, reworking their mindset around their body, and that negative talk they have in their head, that super judgmental, a mean girl, I call her, basically.
Yes.
Right. Everyone has one.
Right. Yeah, mine's named Brianna.
Oh,
My mean girl.
excellent. I think it's really helpful to name the voice in there so that it's not you. It's someone else. You're not a mean person. It's this mean voice, whoever she is, telling you things, telling you stories, and because it's in your own head, you believe it. And so we really have to do a lot of work to challenge ourselves that, just because you have a thought doesn't make it fact.
Exactly. Just because you have a thought, you don't have to believe it.
You don't.
Right. And so this workbook, what is it that you recommend to your clients?
So it's simply called the Intuitive Eating Workbook.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, it's really wonderful. The authors of the Intuitive Eating book, sometime after, because this was mid-90s when the first book came out.
Okay.
Sometime along the way since then, they developed this workbook. They've had multiple editions. I think we're up to the 4th edition of the Intuitive Eating book. So it really can potentially be, something somebody walks themselves through. I have had clients who, have bought the book and or the workbook and decided, what, I can't do this on my own. And that's why they reach out, like they need a little more support. But I think it's possible, depending on somebody's personality, that they can just get themselves going.
Oh, wow. And so can somebody find this workbook on your website?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question.
I'm actually looking on your website here. Oh, it's actually not on your website.
It's not on my website. That's an oversight. I should put it on there because I do have a resources page. Why?
You do.
Oftentimes when I speak with someone on the phone, if they're not like jumping on board with working with me right away, I send them a message, and I do include that, but I don't know why I don't have it on the website too.
Okay, so the Intuitive Eating Workbook is I'm actually looking it up right now.
All right.
10 Principles for Nourishing a Healthy Relationship with Food, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Rush.
Yes.
Wonderful. But your program, it's a DIY version of the Intuitive Eating program.
Correct. So I have both options with me. You can work intensively where we meet and talk it out every week, or someone can, it's sort of somewhere between this intensive program and just having the workbook, where I have some videos and some activities that get released each week, and the person kind of does it on their own, at their own pace, and and then there's some opportunity for like a group Q&A discussion each week, but so there's a couple options. Like I said, I think everybody learns differently, so that's why I have it like that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And so, like, what kind of things do you find people dealing with in the intuitive eating program when they work with you?
Right. Well, honestly, the body stuff I already talked about is huge. And that is something that I always promise people we're going to discuss throughout the program, but it's really lifelong. At the end of the program, I feel like they can really make some major strides. And when it comes to food, can feel, all or mostly resolved with their food issues. But the body stuff takes a long time. And so I help people get started, but they really need to continue that. And we all know, even if you mostly don't struggle with body image, some days we wake up and we're just like, ugh, today's not a great day.
Feeling it.
Yeah, I don't like what I'm seeing today. And so it's important to have strategies for helping yourself get to this point of sort of, body acceptance, and also dealing with those off days because they're going to happen. They happen to everyone. And you have a little bit of a different approach on those days.
Support for the Radiate Wellness podcast is made possible in part by listeners like you. Would you like to support this podcast? Visit radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast for more information.
So when it comes to food, I guess the big thing that I hear a lot is in the beginning, it's accepting this idea that we're not in control of what our bodies look like. We get these messages from all angles, right? That we're supposed to be controlling our bodies. And that we even have control, that you can and should control your body. And it's a lie. Even our doctors are telling us this lie that we need to be managing ourselves. And if you look around, do we really think that all the people in larger bodies are so bad at managing themselves, and all the people in so-called normal sized bodies are really good at it? That's ridiculous, right? It's
right.
There's so many factors. And one of the things I try to explain to my clients is this idea of a pie. And one slice of that pie is your food and your activity. And the rest of the pie is all the other factors that contribute to your body weight and size. And we don't have control over them, right? Our genetics and our metabolism and our age and our medications and, so many, like whatever our hormones are doing at the time, like so many things are going on behind the scenes. And we just keep fighting with this one little piece of pie. Like, oh, I just need to get it just right. I just need to know exactly how many calories to eat, or the exact right kind of workout, and I'm going to get there. And it's not true.
You know what they say about yo-yo diets? They just don't work. You may lose some weight immediately, but then you'll put it back on and then some.
Correct. Yes. And the fact is they actually do work. They do exactly what they're meant to do, because what good is it if you lose weight and then you don't need them anymore? They want you coming back for next time around. It really is. It's terrible the way, people, 95% of people are in that situation. They lose some weight, they gain it back. Maybe they gain more over, by 5 years out, 95% of people. And the conclusion is obviously that there's something wrong with this system, but all of those people are thinking there's something wrong with them, that they did something wrong, that they don't have the willpower, they're not strong enough, it's not the right program, they didn't find the right program, when obviously it's the whole premise of this intentional weight loss through caloric restriction. That's the thing that's wrong. because our
Well, and
body's
if
fine.
there's something inherently wrong with the person anyway.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
right. God does not make mistakes.
That's right. And, when what we are finding is that people who don't do any of that and they just hang out in that higher weight, they're going to be healthier than the person who loses weight and gains weight back.
Really? How does that work?
Because when you've lost weight, more often than not, almost always, when you lose weight, you lose not just fat, but you lose some lean body mass.
Right.
Right. And that's obviously not what you're going for. And then when you gain the weight back, you've gained all fat, you've changed your body composition and potentially messed up your metabolism along the way too. You've changed your body.
Right.
Whereas if you just stayed and just kind of tried to do some healthy stuff with the body that you have, I don't know, maybe it would change your body, but maybe it wouldn't. But if you just work on doing sustainable things that are focused on health versus weight, you're going to be in a much better position because now you can just keep doing these things. But when you have this idea, this goal of weight loss in mind, even if you think you're doing it for health, it's so easy to lose sight of health because you're trying to get the scale to go down, right? And so you start doing things that may or may not be healthy, but they're going to change the scale. And so you're taking these actions that cause the scale to go down. Now, what happens if you should actually get to your goal weight or whatever it is?
Mhm.
And almost hardly anyone does. And usually what our brains do is we just move the goalpost. You're like, oh, well, if I could lose 20 pounds, maybe I could lose 30 pounds, and you just keep going. But let's say you actually did get there and you're like, here I am, I did it and I lost weight and I feel amazing and everything's great. And then what? And now you have to try to maintain that weight loss. And it's a totally different mindset than having a goal of weight loss. Maintaining weight is super boring. And, for somebody who's goal oriented, it's just not exciting. And it's hard to do. And also, if you're doing things that weren't necessarily sustainable, but only to achieve weight loss, you're not going to keep doing those things because you're like, oh, good. Now I can finally enjoy a little of this or do a little of that or ease up over here. Or maybe quit calorie counting because calorie counting is terrible and just, so much work. And so you start easing up and then of course you start gaining the weight back and how that goes.
Is the same weight over and over and over again, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people who've done it, over decades of their lives, gaining and losing the same 10 or 20 or sometimes 50 pounds up and down.
Up and down. So intuitive eating sounds like it's a more sustainable route to go.
Correct. And truly, it's a matter of dealing with your relationship to food before we even talk about food. Like, we don't talk about nutrition and all the part with the sustainable lifestyle changes. Like, you can't even talk about that until you've sorted out your relationship to food, until you've re-engaged with listening and trusting your body and doing all the stuff we were talking about earlier, giving yourself unconditional permission to eat, sorting all of that stuff out. We didn't even talk about the emotional part. Like, sometimes people eat for emotional reasons,
Right.
Dealing with that, not preventing it altogether, but having strategies for dealing with your emotions. Sometimes it's food, but sometimes it's other things, hopefully. And you deal with all of this stuff. And when I feel like the person is starting to really get it and it's working well and it's sort of clicking and they're like, oh, I get it. This feels great. I feel like a weight lifted, they're not caught up thinking about food all the time. Once they're at that point, it's like, okay, now let's look at your diet. Now let's look at what you do. And are there,
Right.
nutrients that are missing? Where's the balance and the variety and the moderation and all that stuff? Now we can talk about that, because if you start off with it, it just feels like another diet. It just sounds like more rules, like, oh, well, you should eat this many servings of, dairy, or get this much protein, or whatever it is. Without the right mindset, it just feels like rules, and you're not going to be able to keep doing it. But when you've been through this process, you've got this foundation of intuitive eating, you can receive the message and it is different. And you're like, okay, I want to take care of my body. I want to get enough calcium for strong bones. I want to avoid, heart conditions that are in my family by doing this and that. And you're able to do it in a way that's in alignment with your body, instead of just saying, well, Heather said I have to eat beans 3 times a week, so I'm going to eat beans whether I like them or not. Like, no, that's terrible. Don't do that. Let's figure out what you do like that fits the bill for your health conditions or family history or whatever your goals are.
Right. Yeah. And that's a problem that I have with, oh my gosh, just insert the name of the diet here. There's so many different things, because they don't necessarily work for your type. They don't work for what you like to eat, or even what feels good for you. I remember I did Atkins once and I felt terrible. I just, oh my gosh, I just felt so weak and sick from eating nothing but protein for the first few days.
Right.
It was not sustainable for me. There are some people who really enjoyed it and, felt great on it, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I never followed up with them to see if they maintained their weight loss or anything like that. But
Sure.
I know for me, it was just the wrong thing to do. And I would love for everybody to see just what makes them feel good.
Yes.
Eating.
And that's this process. We aren't always open to what feels good in our bodies, because sometimes people make a change and it leaves them feeling good initially because, maybe they were eating a bunch of stuff that wasn't right for their body. Like maybe they were eating a lot of fast food because it was convenient. And now like they're on some plan and they have to like make more like homemade meals or something. And they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. And it's like, well, is it the food you're eating or the food you're not eating? And, you kind of have to, right? It's two things, like what's there and what's removed. And, again, sorting out what's sustainable because you're in alignment with your body, not because you've got an eye on the scale.
Because because you've got your finger in the pulse of your body. Right. That makes so much more sense. Yeah, I remember that movie Super Size Me. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, I sure do.
Oh, right. Where, we could see the changes that were happening in this man as he ate more and more of this convenient fast food. And there was a direct correlation between what he put in his body and how his body reacted and how it felt.
Right.
We all make that correlation too.
Right. And I really, at the time, really enjoyed that movie because it was such an exaggerated point, really. Like nobody obviously eats that way exactly, where they force themselves to eat fast food 3 times a day. But the part I don't like about it is, it vilifies fast food a little bit because like I just said, most people aren't eating it 3 meals a day.
Right.
And so it's not going to do that to them. If you feel like eating a hamburger once in a while, or you're on a road trip, or you're in a hurry and this is your only option, eat food versus don't eat food. Don't skip because you don't want to eat fast food. Like, it's okay if that's what you're feeling like having that day. It's not going to raise your cholesterol just because, it's not poison, which I think is sometimes the message we get, that like these highly processed foods or fast foods are poisoning our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfair. It goes back to food rules and this eat this, don't eat that. It's like, well, find a reasonable amount of food. Even what was that guy's name? Morgan Spurlock or something. Wasn't that his name?
Yeah.
The guy from yeah. And he, if he just figured out that once every 3 days he could enjoy some fast food and it had no ill effect, that could have been a different movie. Not as interesting, but a better message about moderation.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, moderation, I think, is key. So your program is intuitive eating. You've got a DIY version, and this is all on your website, freestatenutrition.com. And you've also got your services listed there, and how to get in touch with you and all like that. I see you've got a blog too.
A little bit. It's a little outdated. We haven't done it in a while. I had a video blog I was doing with Dr. Jennifer Smith, who I share an office suite with. And I haven't even been in my office in over a year now. But we used to just take a nutrition topic and talk about it from our different perspectives, her from the medical perspective and me from, nutrition perspective, and kind of sort through some of the myths about different things. And we had a lot of fun. So that's what that is. Maybe we'll pick it up again sometime.
We should, because everybody's got food around and everybody seems to be talking about it. So
for sure,
it's not going away.
It's not. Everybody eats all day, every day, hopefully.
Yes, exactly. Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you think is important to mention that you wish people knew?
Gosh, I feel, I guess one piece we haven't talked much about is exercise.
Oh,
and
yes.
That is actually part of intuitive eating, is looking at your relationship to exercise, because oftentimes people use exercise as a tool to manage their weight rather than a source of pleasure in their lives. And so sometimes it can be used as a punishment for overeating or a way to like earn your food. And this is something, even people who don't do it all the time, it's very common around holidays. I'm thinking about Thanksgiving, and, people think I've got to go for a run in the morning so I can eat lots later and not feel bad about it. And, we need to sort through how we think about and approach exercise, again, so that it's sustainable rather than focused on weight. Because when we think we just have to do something in order to lose weight, we're really, you might not choose the right thing. You might decide to start running because you think, well, that's easy and, people lose weight doing it, so let me go start running. What if you hate running? Then you're not going to keep doing that. Maybe you're going to sign up for a 5K and you're going to do that and that'll be all right. But you're not going to just keep doing it because if you hate it. Me, I'm not a runner, so I'm not going to start a running program, even though it is super easy. Like, you just throw on your sneakers. You don't need to go to the gym or have any special equipment. Super easy. And you're outside. Sounds lovely. It's not for me. So, I wish it was. I do. But I know me. So we really have to think about, what do we like? What makes our bodies feel good? What makes us want to move, instead of what's going to burn the most calories?
Right. I always think the best form of exercise is the one that you actually do.
That's right. That's right. There's all sorts of research about different kinds and how many minutes and time of day and all sorts of things. And at the end of the day, what's important is that you did something that you, not every day, but you move your body in a way that feels right. That's the whole story.
Right, right. Absolutely. Well, Heather, it's been so nice to talk to you today. I appreciate your time to sit down and talk about nutrition. You're a wealth of knowledge. And so I would point anybody to go to your website, freestatenutrition.com. Oh, yeah. Do you work with people around the country?
Yes and no. There are licensure laws. And so each state has, well, not every state, but most states have licensure for dietitians. And so for my intensive program, I am careful about only working with people that I either there's not a license in their state or they're in Kansas. But for my self-guided program, that is open to anyone for sure.
Yeah, and that's exciting. That's your intuitive eating DIY course.
Yes.
And this is found under services on your website, freestatenutrition.com. All right. Well, Heather Fiore, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I truly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun, Christy.
Radiate Wellness is a community of holistic and alternative healers and consultants based in the Kansas City area, dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.